Today we're going to cover using the timeline and actually dragging our memos onto the timeline and creating some projects. So when we open FusionVOX, we'll be greeted with the start button and then the timeline, as you can see here. It's totally blank, so it gives us a fresh canvas to work with. We can either create a new memo and store it, or what we're showing you today is actually using memos that we've already recorded now. And this is the unique feature with FusionVOX, is to create a project by using certain selected memos that we have recorded and rearrange them into a particular order that we wish to. So I can drag some memos onto the timeline, and I can even create a space between each one, so I might need a gap. So we've even heard stories of actors using FusionVOX where they can act out their particular lines and having those spaces in between each memo. So they may have someone acting out a particular part on one memo and then them repeating it on another line. So that seems to be quite handy for some. So with the timeline, we can be quite flexible with it. We can just keep adding and adding and adding. And every time we do add, you'll notice in the top right hand corner that the project is automatically saved. You watch the top right hand screen. It just says changes saved. So whilst we're still on the timeline, we've got the flexibility to give the project a title. So I might call this study notes, or it might be a lecture. And we can always resave that in the projects drawer anyway, but we'll come to that at a later stage. The time length is telling me the total time of all the memos stored. So again, if I move that over, you can see that the timeline is increasing. If you're finding that your memos that you've dragged in are too small, you've even got the pinch zoom feature. We've got all our memos in the timeline. It's fully flexible, so we can just still keep adding more if we want to and shuffle things around, which is really cool. We can just press play. This is another memo showing how you can favourite your particular memo by colorising it or giving it a favourite. Now we can use the timeline scrubber bar here, so we can actually play from a desired time. Letting it record for the allocated time, as you can see the clock. Yep. You can go back one. The microphone. And if you're like us and you've got lots and lots of memos in your drawer, but you've placed a lot on your timeline, you can even use the play button on here to just hear that particular cell. So you think, oh, what was that I recorded the other day? So you can just have a quick listen to actually see what it is before you use it or even delete it. Feature with having your memos in the timeline and being a bit more flexible with it is if this particular memo cell doesn't have the right name or the right color, you can still do that even though it's still on the timeline. So if you find the particular memo that's related to that, so it's telling me here memo 12 is in the timeline, so I can find that in the memo drawer. I can rename that, so I can call it meeting Monday, and when I hit return, it automatically adjusts the name of the title on the cell that's even in the timeline. Not only that, I can color it, and you can see it there. It's automatically updating the color in the timeline itself, because you might have a particular color allocated, say business or study or however you want to do it. So that's pretty cool. Hopefully we've covered a fair bit with the timeline video. The next video will cover more of the projects area, so I hope to see you again soon.